Let's talk about factorizing by completing the square. So just to recap on what a perfect square is, we have two types of perfect squares. So we have this one, a plus b squared, okay, and a minus b squared. And so the goal of completing the square, right, is to get it into this form. And I'll show you on how that works. Say, for example, I have x squared plus 4x, okay? Now, what I can do, right, is if I add a 4 here, okay, and if I use PSF, what you'll realize is that this is the same as x plus 2, x plus 2, and then it will finally give you x plus 2 squared, which is a perfect square. And that is what completing the square means. It means just to make it into a perfect square. And so here's a rule you should know. So to complete the square for x squared plus bx, you just want to add b over 2 squared. And I'll show you how to do that. It's fairly straightforward. All right, so we're given this question where it says complete the square and then factorize for x squared plus 10x. And it's fairly straightforward. Uh, so if you look at this rule, right, here it says to complete the square, you just want to add b over 2 squared. So b, in this case, is the number in front of the x, okay? Just a single x. So I'm just going to figure out what that is. So b is equal to 10, okay? It's just the number in front of the x. b over 2 squared is equal to, so we know b is 10, so I'm just going to write 10 over 2 squared. 10 over 2 is just 5 squared. That's just going to be equal to 25. And so I can just add 25 here. Okay, but this question also asks us to factorize. And to factorize this, you can use PSF, but I'm just going to do a shortcut. So you can just square root the 25 and you get x plus 5 squared. All right, so I have this question, x squared minus 7x. Now, just remember the first step, we're going to find b over 2 squared. So let's just find b first. B is just minus 7, okay, just the number in front of the x. B over 2 squared is just minus 7 over 2 squared. And this will give you 49 over 4. Okay, and so I can add plus 49 over 4 to this. And so to factorize this, you can just square root the last number. So that'll give you 7 over 2. So this will be equal to x minus 7 over 2. And if you're wondering why this is negative, it's because like when you have this, right, a minus b squared, this gives you a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. And so since in both of these ones, right, you see how the middle number has a negative? This middle also should be negative. So that's why we have x minus 7 over 2 squared. All right, so let's look at factorizing by completing the square. So there's 3 steps to this. I'm not going to read it all right now, but I'll go through step by step for a question on how it works. All right, so let's say we had this question. Factorize the following by completing the square if possible. Now, let's look at the first step. Here it says the first step is to add b over 2 squared and balance by subtracting b over 2 squared. So let's just first find what b over 2 squared is. So we know that b, right, is the number in front of the x. So that's just minus 8. And b over 2 squared equals to minus 8 over 2 squared, which is equal to, I think if you type this in the calculator, it should give you 16. And so from here, right, I'm just going to write the original expression. So if you look at the first rule again, it says add b over 2 squared and balance by subtracting b over 2 squared. So I'm going to add b over 2 squared, which I found here is 16. And then I'm going to subtract 16 because when you, okay, so let me just complete the whole thing. So it'll look like this, right? From this expression to this expression. And the reason why is because this, when you add these two together, add up to 0. And so you're not really changing the expression. You're just changing the way it looks. Okay? And so that's why it's very important to add and subtract b over 2 squared. If you look here, it says to factorize the perfect square and simplify. So the perfect square in this case is this thing right here. Okay. And so I will factorize that. So if you remember the tip I just told you earlier, you just want to square root the second one. And so this would be x minus 4 squared. Okay. And then we're left with minus 16 minus 3, which is minus 19. All right. And then if you look at this, and then if you look at the final step, here it says to factorize by using the difference of two squares. So this is the difference of two squares, okay? And it's really easy to factorize using difference of two squares. You just want to square root the first one and the second one. So if you square root the first one, that should give you x minus 4. All right, equals here. And then square root this one, which would give you root 19. So plus root 19. And then you want to do the negative version, minus root 19. Okay, I know that was a lot to digest, so I'll go through another example if that didn't make sense. All right, so let's say we had x squared plus 2x plus 8. So I'm just going to do the first step. I'm going to find out what b over 2 squared is. B equals to 2, so the number in front of the x. B of 2 squared, that's just 2 over 2 squared, which is 1. All right, and so for, I'm just going to write the original expression here. You just want to add b over 2 squared and subtract b over 2 squared. So I'll just do that. This will be equal to x squared plus 2x plus 1 minus 1 plus 8. Okay, and then I want to factorize the perfect square and simplify. So just remember, the perfect square is this thing right here. So that's going to be x plus 1 squared, because the square root of 1 is just 1. And minus 1 plus 8, that just gives you plus 7. All right, and you can't really factorize this anymore because if you look at this rule right here, it says factorize by using the difference of two squares. Now, difference of two squares requires a minus, okay? But this has a plus, so you can just leave it the way it is. And yeah, that's it for factorizing by completing the square.